Thank you for joining today's webinar, Quality in Daily Operations. My name is Odette Periel. History has given us many examples of bad outcomes when quality is overlooked. One of the most infamous examples is the Chernobyl nuclear power plant explosion in April of 1986. I invite you to view the video, Chernobyl, What Really Happened. What a powerful story. Because of human error to increase pressure, hundreds of thousands of people for years to come paid the price. One of the scenes in the video that really got my attention and really made an impact for me was watching the two divers chosen to go down and release the valve, holding hands, trembling before diving in, knowing they would never return. The valve release was not even the fix. Radioactive waves 30,000 times normal were released. Frontline responders were instantly killed. Children were born with extreme deformities for years. Like Chernobyl, there are many other examples of bad outcomes when quality is overlooked. In 1971, we had the Ford Pinto tragic product. In January of 1986, the Challenger space shuttle explosion. In 2008, the financial crisis. And in 2010, the BP Deepwater Horizon explosion and oil spill. And the list goes on. For me, my first quality failure was at the age of 24. I was the director of housekeeping for a beautiful 489-room beach and golf resort in Jamaica. It was a Friday afternoon, my third week on the job. We had a turn of over 200 check-ins and check-outs. I was feeling like I was in a really good place until I got that dreaded call from the front office. They had a lobby full of guests waiting to check in. Amongst the group were 3 different flight crews whose clocks were ticking for them to get rest so that the flights out would not have to be delayed, thereby impacting hundreds of passengers trying to get back home after vacation. I was eventually able to get some rooms turned and people checked in. I wish I could say to you at this point that that was my last quality fumble, but it wasn't. I'm sure at this point you can remember several examples of when the outcome was less than desired because quality was overlooked. Quality does not only exist on the big stage, it happens in our everyday activities. As you can see from the picture on the left, when we go grocery shopping, we use quality to help us make our decisions. The gentleman is definitely smelling, testing, making sure that when he chooses his produce, he does so with quality in mind. On the right, when we're planning our vacations, when we choose a hotel, we also use quality to help us make that decision. Do we stay in a 2-star hotel or a 5-star hotel? I will be in the 5-star hotels for sure. What if your contractor delivered this job for you? Take a look at the photo. Do you see anything wrong? Where are the steps leading? Would you like to enter your house from the window? No, thank you. I'll take the door, please. Is this a quality product? Would you be satisfied with this product? When we go out to eat, we also use quality to help us make our decisions. Here we have 2 sandwiches, Sandwich A and Sandwich B. Which would you prefer? For me, I will be choosing Sandwich B. Why? Because based on these 2 photos, Sandwich B meets my expectations. I know the topic of quality can be sometimes seemingly large, but here to help us demystify the conversation on quality, and show us how to apply quality principles and share tools that we can immediately start using after this webinar is over in our daily operations is Dr. Dion Dixon. She has been in the quality arena for over 25 years. She's a Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award Program appraiser, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and a member of the National Association for Healthcare Quality. Dr. Dixon?
Odette, thank you so much for the introduction. Great job kicking off our topic on quality today. I thought you were teed up really, really nicely for the entire session, by the way. Perhaps next time you'll do it solo. A warm welcome to our participants for joining us. It is our hope that you'll find this session very, very value added for your operations and your daily life. Special thanks to PDI for the platform. And without further ado, let me go into our objectives for the session. So for today, we will tackle a definition on quality. We will examine why quality matters, look into some of the costs that are associated with quality, poor quality, low quality, lack of quality, and good quality. We will look at the evolution of quality. Where did this come from? Has this always been a mainstay in our language? We will look at some of the awards and regulatory agencies that govern us in our operations as well, nationally, regionally, and internationally. We will identify some of the concepts and the activities in our daily life, and Odette kicked that off. So Odette, thank you for doing that. And finally, most value added in my mind for the session will be the tools, some of the quality tools that you can utilize. You can walk away from this session and implement in your daily operations that will help you to achieve some of your outcomes, desired outcomes. All right, so let's get started. So here's what's ironic to me. The concept and the term quality is a mainstay in society. We hear it every single where we go. We are being held by quality standards. We have regulatory agencies that hold us to quality standards. Odette just spoke at length about maintaining quality and the lack of quality. But what does it really mean? How do we define quality so that we can explain it to somebody else? So I went to the dictionary. And just indulge me for a second. Look to the top right of your screen, of this slide, and you'll see the word quality. And if you read that, there is no way you're coming out of that definition understanding what quality is. So how do we get help? How do we define quality in such a way that we're able to apply it, explain it, and apply it to our teams if the dictionary itself does not do that, right? So let me try to help you. Okay, so a simple, safe definition for quality is anything that is fit for use and that which meets the customer's expectation and desire. Fit for use, meaning it is safe. We have that social contract with a customer that says, you do business with us, we guarantee that what we give you, goods or services, is going to be safe. You can use it and feel comfortable. And then the other one is meeting the expectations and the desires of the customer. I go in, I order a cake with Dove, and you come out with a cake with a duck. It does not meet my expectation or desire. It is not quality for me. So again, a safe definition for quality is fitness for use and meeting the customer's expectation. So after doing this for a number of years, I can tell you that one of the most consistent feedback that I've gotten from participants has been, yes, we do get it. While we may not have understood or been able to define quality in this way as having fitness for use and meeting the customer's expectation, we do know as professionals, as operational leaders, that getting that experience to the customer, that always experience, that giving them something that is worthwhile and that meets their expectation is important. We know it. But even given the busyness of our days and the challenges of our roles, it is sometimes very difficult to juggle the competing priorities so that we're able to actually deliver in this way. Sometimes we're lucky to get through it. And I get it. I 100%, I don't think there is a story that I haven't gotten as to why it is difficult for us to do all these things. And I'll add to that, I don't think that anyone goes to work to do a bad job. I don't think that anyone really wants to go in today and say, you know what, my goal is to do a bad job today. I don't believe it. So it has to be that it's extenuating circumstances and us just not being able to either execute on it, or really the priorities are just so competing that we just have to get through it the best way we know how to. But one thing that I have said and will always say is, regardless of how we manage or way through the nuances of what we have to do in our roles, not only does our customer deserve our best every time, and as professionals we have to figure out a way to get that done, but also there is a cost associated to low quality and lack of quality. And depending on who you speak with, from which industry, which I'll speak to you a little bit about a little later, depending on which industry professional you speak to, what that cost looks like, what it costs them in their different industry to have low quality varies. It varies. For some, it's money. For some, it's time. For some, it's customer loyalty. For some, it's safety. It varies. But consistently, what every professional and quality expert will tell you is that the cost for getting it wrong eventually is much higher than the cost for getting it right. And that is the real reason why, regardless of how we are going to get it done, we have to do it right the first time. So let's talk a little bit about the cost of quality, whether it be poor quality, lack of quality, great, good quality. Depending on the industry professional that you have this conversation with, they will identify different things as that cost to their industry. And here you can see the different things that are very common. And you can also just Google and you'll see a lot of what's identified as costs. And the majority of the time, we're looking at pricing. We're looking at inefficiencies. We're looking at things such as indicated here: customer returns, inspection costs, real recalls, rework, all of that stuff. But what I've found is that folks outside of healthcare very seldom identify loss of life and safety as a cost for having poor quality. So that's the first thing that I'm going to identify here as the most pivotal thing for having poor quality. We have a social contract with the public and our customers, and we guarantee them that by doing business with us, they will be safe. They're getting goods and services that are fit for use, that will keep their families, and at times, let's not forget, we are customers as well. So we have that social contract with the providers, service providers that we also do business with, and it says to us that we are safe. What we're getting from them won't harm us. But if we go back to the video, which is just one example, of such a tragedy that came from a failure in quality. The Chernobyl disaster that Odette mentioned before. And please, if you have time, please go ahead and check out that video. It is so tragic. Just by cutting corners, you can see how many lives were lost. Lives were lost on the plant. Their lives were lost with people volunteering, subjecting themselves to be saviors, to go and try to turn off that underwater pipe so that it wouldn't harm anyone else, knowing fully well that they would never come back. But they agreed to give their life for the greater good. And still it didn't work. Because that plant exploded, it also cost lives of the first responders. It cost lives of many other people, weeks and months to come. And then the effects of radiation, even years after, resulted in deformities in livestock, in humans. I mean, it was just so tragic to see what happened. So I mention that because as I do my research and I look at what is identified as the cost to quality, I believe that that is one reason why we don't prioritize quality as much as we ought to. And that's because we're not linking it to safety and loss of life as we ought to be. So that is the first cost that we absolutely should not be compromising, and that is safety, and that's loss of life. That's the first cost that I want to cover. While many professionals outside of healthcare are not very familiar with the intangible cost of poor quality, such as life, loss of eyesight, limb, they're more familiar. They're certainly familiar with the tangible costs, such as losing money, losing revenue, such as losing customer, such as negatively impacting your brand. They are all familiar with that. What I have found, however, is that the support services division are not quite aligning the tremendous impact that their actions have on these tangible cost of poor quality. I have gotten a lot of feedback to say, while we know our role is pivotal, we could not possibly have caused the organization to lose millions of dollars, or we could not possibly have caused brand loyalty to fall or for the organization to lose market share. That's not true. One interaction, one momentary lapse, 1 minute of deciding that you are going to be okay with compromising on quality for any reason at all can result in the tangible and intangible cost of poor quality to the organization. Those are a lot of words. So let me just simplify it. The minute you decide that you can do otherwise, or you have the luxury of not doing your best, giving quality goods and services, the minute you decide that, you can impact the income, the revenue of the organization. You can cost the brand its market share and loyalty, and you can cost customer loyalty for that organization. And any sustainment of such behavior, anything that goes on short term or even long term, especially long term, is going to render you out of business, and it is going to result in a loss of jobs. So let's look at some organization, one in particular, in the interest of time. that struggled with quality over the years, and you might not even believe this because at this point it's synonymous with quality, and it's Apple. Back in the 80s, when Apple put out its computer, I think it was the Apple #3 computer, that computer had a 100% failure rate. 14,000 of the 14,000 units that were put out were recalled because the thing overheated and would burn the disks that were put into it. But Apple recognized the value of turning cores and not being okay with poor quality or putting out substandard goods. And so they recalled everything and they worked on the product that they're putting out there for their customers. Was it smooth sailing from then on for them? Absolutely not. 2010, when they put out their phone, it was widely publicized that the one thing, the main customer requirement of the phone, what do we use the phone, what do we most need the phone for? To make a phone call. The phone could not do it. By holding it in your hand, positioning it in your hand in a particular way, it would disconnect the call. And again, they were wildly criticized for that. They had to recall and they had to up their game. Many of these very, very famous brands that we now associate with quality had to work on it and had to decide that one episode, one incident, any incident of being okay with low quality or sub quality is too much of a risk. And from anyone in the organization, not just clinical folks or technicians, anyone in the organization is too much. So now that we know why quality matters so much, let's take a look at our history, sort of to put into context what quality was for us in the US economy before now. So before the industrialization period, quality really wasn't an issue. And this is not because folks were not wanting things that were fit for use or had high expectations. It was because craftsmen delivered goods and services, and they were already very meticulous about what they were doing. By the industrial period, however, there was more demand for goods and services, and the speed of the craftsmen could not supply what was needed. To add insult to injury, you now had, by World War I, the craftsmen being sent off to war, so that further caused a hit to goods and services being produced in a quality way, because now you had women and children doing production and they didn't have much training. So that continued for a while. Now, why was this allowed to happen? Well, of course, the focus was on the war, and most of the manufacturers were pulled to provide equipment for the war. So very few were focused on basic commodities. So whatever was available, whomever were focused on doing basic goods and services and basic commodities, they could produce low quality goods and still have a market for it because nobody else was manufacturing anything. So that went on for a while. Now fast forward to the exiting out of World War II. This is the period where Japan was trying to rebuild their economy and the US was trying to catch up with the basic goods and services because, of course, now the war is done. And Japan realized that, okay, let me take lessons from what the US used to do and produce quality goods because I need to be competitive. The US in turn said, you know what? I need to play catch up because so many people need goods and services. I just have to push it out. So it was more about mass versus quality. What happened with that ideology was that things literally started to fall apart. The US was declining in its focus on quality while Japan was advancing in its focus on quality. And so the consumer market was shifting towards the goods in Japan, and US was losing its market share. The failure rate for a television, for example, from Japan versus the one from the US was like 5 times. So at this point, US realized, under the leadership of Ronald Reagan and George Bush, they realized that there is no way that we can continue this way, because we're losing out to Japan on almost everything that matters to us, the auto industry. And many of us can remember what was happening with television and stereos and everything coming from Japan back then. Those were the goods to purchase. So Ronald Reagan and George Bush decided that they needed to launch a campaign and refocus the country on what was quality, and so they developed some standards for quality and legislation around quality, and various organizations also erected different quality standards and awards, such as Baldrige. And that's in essence why we are here with as many regulatory bodies to enforce and keep us on track with quality, to ensure that we don't go back down that road where we are non-competitive on a national stage or even a domestic stage, because we were literally losing out to our own market here in the US. So that's how quality became the huge focus that it is now. Just a quick slide to share some of the regulatory bodies that we're familiar with, and some of the organizations that support quality through awards. So now that we've covered a bit of information, we have looked at what quality is, we are just going to jump into a little bit of trivia for you. I hope you've been listening. I hope you've been enjoying everything. You are going to attempt to answer the questions on your end, and Odette, you are going to answer the question on behalf of everyone else. So I'll ask the questions and you will answer, okay?
I'm ready when you are, Dion. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the first question is, what is quality?
So quality is fit for use. It is meeting the customer's expectations.
All right. Somebody was listening. Okay. Question
That's
2.
me.
Question 2. List examples of daily activities that we already use quality tools to complete.
So in the presentation, some of the daily activities that we covered were grocery shopping. We also covered going to a restaurant to eat. We talked about how it plays out in construction, or even planning vacations.
Oh, you sure were listening. All right. Now this one you should get. List one environmental service activity that you unconsciously already use quality principles to complete.
I think one that we typically use quality tools to complete is the room inspection. It is one of the most important things that we do in terms of presenting a finished product to our patients, a finished product that we know will help them with their healing process. So the room inspection, I would say, is probably one of the easiest ones I could think of right now.
Oh, and that was a good one. All right, so number 4, because we have 5 of them. Number 4 is, which world war influenced quality as we know it in the US today the most?
World War II.
Oh, you were listening. All right, extra credit for you, extra credit, and then you have a prize at the end. Name one quality award or regulatory body for quality.
My favorite quality award is the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Awards. And I think one of the regulatory board bodies that we know in healthcare is the Joint Commission. We can also think of the EPA,
the Environmental Protection Agency. Healthcare is full of regulatory bodies for sure.
All right. So guess what? You got 5 out of 5. Good job.
I'm ready for my prize. Thank you.
You at the end of the session, you'll get your prize. Thank you for participating. So this guy over here, the manager on the right, really cracks me up. It's funny, but actually a pretty serious issue, which takes me to what I consider to be the most value-added part of the webinar for you, which is getting you some of the tools that you need to do your job. Nobody really goes to work to do a bad job, but unfortunately, because we don't have the tools, we just technically don't have the know-how to do what needs to be done. We often point the finger that it's not our fault, or we engage in activities that really get us no place, right? So next step is we're going to be looking at some of the tools that you can literally just take and implement into your operations, and at minimum achieve improved efficiency, organizations. It can help you a lot of times discover how you can improve your processes beyond what you even thought was possible. Sometimes we actually don't even know that there is room for improvement, but by engaging in some of these activities, you'd be surprised what you can find. All right, let's go. I hope you're excited, because I'm really excited about these tools. So first up is our prioritization matrix. It's simple enough, but so many managers don't know how to organize or prioritize their work. The prioritization matrix is great for helping us to organize what comes first in the queue, what's most value added. And the great thing about it is that it's a living, breathing document, so you can adjust and recalibrate as new things come on your radar. No further than COVID-19, especially for the ES staff. Most of the other disciplines had work put on their parking lots, and they can pick that up after, and they have assumed new functions. For the ES team, particularly in my organization, they have had work added to what they already do. So are you still turning over rooms? Absolutely. But now you have additional tasks of hand sanitizers and soap dispensers refilling right throughout the organization. Did you always have that? Yes, but certainly not at this level. So the prioritization matrix is a good way for you to look at what pays off big and easy to implement. There are different prioritization charts that you can use, and I have two really simple ones here. It says payoff, small payoff, big payoff, easy to implement, hard to implement. So instinctually, you want to go for something that's going to give you a big payoff, but that's easy to implement. And that would be the far right top corner. And literally, you look at each task that you have and you say, how difficult is this going to be? And is it going to make much of a difference? And you just put that in the box over there. And once you get done with all the tasks that are on your plate and you have them in these categories, then at a glance, it tells you what you should attack first. And in this case, I would be attacking these top 3 to the right first. There are some other tasks that are low-hanging fruit, and you might decide, okay, it's a small payoff, but it's really easy to implement, so I could just knock those off. I look very pretty when I go in front of my boss to say, listen, I have done what, 8 of the, what's this, 8 of the 10, 12 tasks that are on my plate, right? So just one way, very valuable tool for you to use. So the next tool that I want to make sure that we go over is our project plan and impact mapping tool. No, don't get nervous about this, please. I know that quality professionals and project managers tend to come with some really robust plans that they might need, but you The frontline team members and managers who are actually actioning this, we really don't need all that stuff. So I have demystified and simplified for you a little project plan, which is just basically all that you'll need. And then you can just add as you go along, right? So what would you need? What is the project about? Your goal. Identify any risks up front that you might face. That's very critical. Then you need to be focused on who or what will be involved and who and what will not be involved. And that's called your scope, right? So for example, I'll be concerned with everything that is in the lobbies, in the front lobby, but anything that's outside of the front lobby is not in my plan right now. So your scope's very important because you're going to have that person, that other manager, that's going to come and say, well, the floors were cleaned in the front lobby, but nothing was done in this hallway. If you have your scope defined, then that clearly says to your customer that phase 1 will only include front lobby. So that's a big deal for defining what your scope is and also communicating what your scope's going to be. Next, when do you start and when do you finish? Timelines are critical. Your schedule is critical because that's what keeps you on track. Then next, who is doing what work and what will each person be doing? Your participants, your stakeholders, and their roles is also very critical. I remember a few years ago when I did my first aid exam, and I never forgot that the instructor shared with us. He said, always point and identify the person who you're asking to do whatever you're asking them to do. Call them by name, because what happens is in a fright situation, everybody will think somebody did it when nobody actually did it. That falls true with projects as well. Everyone knows that the task is there to be done, who is supposed to do it, and when it's supposed to be done. You will hear that consecutively in projects. Oh, but I thought you were going to do it. No. So to avoid that, identify who is going to do what. And then your stakeholders, make sure your stakeholders know what part of your plan is going to impact them. How often have you seen projects rolled out that impact your area but nobody had you at the table? Okay, that's why it's important. Make sure you identify everyone that will be impacted. That's where the impact mapping comes from. Everyone that will be impacted by your project needs to be at the table, or there needs to be some sort of way to communicate with them. The second to last one here is budget. We don't do a very good job of that in healthcare, but it is very important to understand how much it is going to cost and who is going to pay for it. And then finally, measurements. Your measurements are critical because they show you how you are performing. All right, so this and your prioritization tool are really, really good tools to have and very beneficial to your operation. Process flow, process mapping, value stream mapping. These are all used interchangeably, but pretty much they help you to improve in efficiency in your organization. They help you to understand what your processes look like, and they help you to better organize, to have a more smooth process. They help you to identify where bottlenecks can be found, where you might have duplications, interruptions. All of those things are achievable by creating a process flow or a process map or a value stream map. Look at, for example, the guy on the left, and they're wondering why customers are leaving more than they're joining. And if you look at the process to join and how many steps that has compared to the process to close, it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out why folks would more easily close their accounts than join that bank. All right, and this can also be utilized in your organization, and you can realize some very important things that, weren't as visible as well to your operations just by looking at this. Now, one thing I want to point out when you're doing your process flow or your value stream mapping is always engage in a walk of your process. Now, that's what's called Gemba walk. It means go out there and validate it. Don't just say this is how it should be, because when we did it 10 years ago, this is how we organized it. Things could have changed significantly. So go out there and walk the process, experience the process yourself before you document it, or at least validate it once you document it. So the spaghetti diagram is also another flow document that actually shows the relationships between your different areas or the tasks or all of that stuff. So it's similar to your process flow, but the spaghetti diagram actually helps you to even measure touch points. So you might even be able to look at the time that it takes a housekeeping staff team member to move from one room to the next room. You can add some time measures to the spaghetti diagram to evaluate that. Quickly look at the before here and look at all those arrows going over all over to the different spots, and that's why they call it spaghetti. But then look at how consolidated those steps were in the after diagram, and you can see how valuable that would be to making your process leaner. This is actually one of my most favorite tool. Now, this is best used for new or redesigning processes. Now you use this to identify what could possibly go wrong in your project or your task before you actually launch. So there's less cleaning up, there's less casualties of war. Very, very valuable. So really quickly, you can see it identifies the steps, the process functions or the steps, the potential for failure. It evaluates potential causes for those failures. It looks at what you can recommend that might minimize or alleviate that, and then take the actions. And all of that happens right up front before you even start using the tool. So here it is where we're looking at a step with a family and friends visit a resident who is at a higher risk of infection. Potential failure here could be that the resident could catch an infection from the visitor. Potential failure affects the resident, could get sick. So they catch that infection and then they get sick. The potential causes for the failure, obviously, is because the friends and family would have visited and transmitted this infection. So potential cause is the liberal. They've identified this here as the liberal visitation policy. So perhaps there are different things can be done to make the policy more sensitive to the person at a higher risk for infection. What can you do to fix this? Policy is not restrictive enough. You could modify the visitor's policy so that it is more restrictive and better protecting of persons who are higher risk. So before you even start, this helps you to identify where you can fix. And each one is assigned a score. And then when you add up those scores, depending on what that end score is, it may say to you, this is a really high risk and we need to fix this before we launch. Or you might say, okay, we understand that there is a risk, but minor, and we should launch anyway. Another valuable tool here is the mistake proofing. Prevention is always better than cure. So if you look here, there are two basic types of mistake proofing. There is the error prevention and there is the error detection. Now, redesign so that the activity cannot go wrong at all, the prevention. So if you're looking over here where we have the physical, you'll see a square peg being placed in a square hole, but then the other holes here are round. So there is absolutely no way that this square peg will ever get into those holes. So that creates a scenario where that risk would never happen with that thing being placed into a round hole. So that's error prevention. The bottom right image there of that road, for those of us who are drivers, I am sure you have on many occasions found yourself drifting over to the soft shoulder or over to the other side, and you will feel these glitches here on the road, and they alert you to the fact that you are about to make an error. So it is detecting for you that you're about to be someplace that you really shouldn't be. All right, so that's the value of this tool. Really, I think very, very, very beneficial in your operations. Really simple, but overlooked a lot is what we call 5 S's. And simply, it is organizing. It is organizing. It's sorting, stabilizing, shining, sustaining, and standardizing. It's called the 5 S's. And if you put things in place, then the idea that you'll be able to find it or identify any deviation is going to be easier for you. Quick story: I'm actually from the military, and I travel with a backpack, and I do not have to look in any area of that backpack at all. I can open the backpack and I can feel with my hand, because I know where everything is. Everything is sorted, it is stabilized, it is shine, it's standardized, and it is sustained. So I know where my lip gloss is, I know where my notepad is, I know where my pens are, I know where everything is in that backpack without I can do it with my eyes closed. The 5 whys is for those of us who have children. You know that they're always asking, but why, but why, but why? No, by the time you get to the 5th why, this theory suggests that you would have already identified what the problem is. So the 5 whys is a way to identify your root cause. All right, so 5S keeps you organized and stabilized, and the 5 why gets you to your root cause. Now, this is one you can take to the bank, because I'm going to tell you that the control chart is the only tool in quality that shows you how stable your process is. Look at this guy on the right, and he can easily identify that Barnes, if you see Barnes to the bottom left of your page here, Barnes' productivity is not on par with all the others, but he's able to, at a glance, tell that Barnes' productivity is not there because of the use of this control chart. Really, really good. Now, this is one of the more difficult of the tools to actually utilize, and I can tell you that it is often one of the first tools that the quality professionals pull out for teams to work with. Now, not a really bad thing because of the value of the tool. It gives you so much information. That said, it is a lot of work and a lot of time that is invested in completing this, and often to no good outcome, right? But the cause and effect diagram, like it says, or fishbone diagram, it's called so many different names, but this definitely identifies what causes the issues that you're having in your operation, and what are the effects of that. And you can literally drill down to see if it's machine, people, material, what is causing the issues that you're having. Really good tool. So a lot of these tools work across each other. So the Pareto chart, one of my favorites as well, tells you what you should focus on first. So you have identified what the issue is in your cause and effect diagram, and let's say several of them are issues. Now the Pareto chart helps you to identify how much of an issue which one is, and therefore isolates it so that you can focus on it over the others. Or you can choose to focus on something else, but it helps you to see how much of an issue that particular issue is. So the bar chart is good for frequency and identifying, what you need to focus on. But the bar chart is normally separated. As you can see, the spaces in between here, and it does not have to be in descending order. Again, a histogram, similar to the bar chart and the Pareto. These still look at frequency and what you need to focus on first, but the histogram takes that main thing that the Pareto chart identified, and it says, okay, customer complaints are mainly about the trees. And it says, okay, well, let's drill down and look at what about the trees is causing this issue. So that's the main difference between the Pareto and the histogram. The histogram takes the main thing and starts to drill down. So it's just one thing that it drills down on, while the Pareto drills down on a number of things and says which one is the most, is occurring the most and causing the most damage. So the next two tools I included are behavior tools, because I have to say that while we are focused on our processes, not many of us are looking at how the behaviors of our team members add to the success or failures of our operations. So let's look at even asking team members to go into COVID patients' rooms. And we have everything. We have trained them. We've given them the safety supplies. We have done all that we need to do from a planning perspective, but we have not included a response for their behavior. Now, this team member could be afraid, and as a result, compromises everything. And everything that all that training went out the door, right? So this behavior tool helps you to plan for some of the behaviors, some of the antecedents to the behavior, and then the consequences. So maybe you can say who feels best or most confident about going in this room, or on this screen here you can see where compensation is used as a consequence, as a reinforcement towards behavior. You have feedback as well, different things. But at the core of these tools is that you need to be focused. You need to make sure that in your planning, you account for behaviors as well. And these are good tools to help you to plan for the behaviors. This is just another of the behavior tool as well. So I included sampling, knowing fully well that we almost all do it and already use it. So for example, in environmental services, you guys will swab a room, and you swab a part of the room. You're not swabbing the entire room. That swabbing on that part of the room is sampling. You're sampling because you're assuming that by swabbing one part of the room, the entire room is where it needs to be. The same thing in everyday activity. You're going to the grocery store and you're picking a grape from the bags of grape, and you're tasting it. Why are you tasting it? You're tasting it to make sure that it is sweet or it is tart, depending on how best you like your grapes. But you're not eating that entire bag of grape. You are sampling. By doing that, you are assuming that the entire bag of grape is like the one or the two that you have tasted. Okay, so we covered a whole lot, and we have the second of our 2 trivia sessions. And Odette, I hope you're ready for this, because this is really going to impact your prize at the end. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready for my prize. Bring it on.
Okay. All right. So first one, now we have 7 questions here, and 1 is extra credit. So first one is, name one quality tool that will help you prioritize your operations?
So I'm going to go with the prioritization matrix.
Excellent. All right. Number 2, which tool helps you avoid failures in a new or redesigned project?
Again, I'm going to use that keyword failure and say the failure mode assessment.
Absolutely. There is something in a name. Number 3, what are 3 things that should be in your project plan?
So some of the things that should be in a project plan would be what's the goal of the project? Also, what's the scope of it? And how do you know that you've achieved your goal? What's your measurement? So measurements, those are 3 of the many things that should be in there. Of course, timelines and continuous improvement. Those are other things, and who are participating would be good things
To include. And I noticed you left budget out, but that's okay.
Yes, because you said that was for finance.
All right, number 4. Which quality tool helps you identify what is wrong? The root cause.
So the root cause, cause and effect would be, again, the name is in the title, cause and effect, or the fishbone. Also the Pareto chart and the flow chart.
The bar chart, the histogram, quite a few of them get us to that question, what is the root cause of what's happening? And again, we choose it based on what we're comfortable with. You're doing well. Awesome. All right, so now we are at which quality tool tells you if your project is stable?
The control chart.
Tell them Dion said so. All right.
Yes.
Almost there. Name one tool that helps you organize your operation.
The process mapping would be a tool that could be used to help organize the operation.
Okay.
Or the spaghetti diagram. We could use that as well, right?
Good, good, yes. And also, remember the 5S?
Yes, the 5S as well.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, so here is your extra credit. Why is the behavior tool important to quality in your operations?
I think the behavior tool allows us to target and cultivate the behaviors that you need to achieve to make sure that you are going to achieve the success you want, that fitness for use is there, because oftentimes behavior is the one thing that we often forget, but it's one of the most important things when we're trying to make changes in order to go in a new direction.
Absolutely. Human error. Very, very seldom factored in our planning. Well, excellent. And your prize will be in the mail.
Oh, no.
But you're going to get it. You're getting it. Thank you so much, Odette. You did wonderful. So I really hope that you had a wonderful time spending quality time with us today. I hope I did not bore you to death. I hope it was not like watching paint dry. And I really hope that it was value added to you. We covered quality and what it means. We looked at why we need quality. We reviewed a bit on the history of how quality came to be. We looked at some of our everyday activities that we already use quality principles in. And then finally, we reviewed some of the tools that you can really quickly just use to organize yourself or to get a pulse on where you are and how your teams are performing. And I hope you enjoyed your time spent with us. And I look forward to future discussions. All right, you walk good now.
Dr. Dixon, thank you so much for keeping it simple, for taking us through that brief history of quality, and for sharing all those tools you did with us. I'm thinking about my 24-year-old self. If I had these tools, I probably would not have been in that situation on that dreaded Friday. For everyone who joined in today, all the participants, I want to thank you so much for your time and attention. And PDI, thank you for this platform. Until next time, have a wonderful day.